This is your captain speaking.
Welcome back to This Is Your Captain Speaking, where we give you access to New Zealand's top technology executives and their stories. Today, we're catching up with Zainab Al-Anbuky, who's the head of people with Figured, a technology exporter in New Zealand. We're going to hear about her journey through happy psychology to become a people leader, talk about how you can generate relationships with future mentors, and hear about what you need to be thinking about if you're bringing AI into your company and how to manage your people risk.
Hi, I'm Julian.
Hi.
I'm one of the directors at Potential, with the largest technology recruitment company in New Zealand. I head up the leadership search.
Hi, I'm Zainab. I look after the people and culture at a technology company called Figured.
Nice one. And it's a bit of a tricky time in the product development sector with New Zealand exporters of technology. So, what do you think is going on with the New Zealand tech sector, and what do you kind of think is going to happen?
Yeah, super interesting times. Obviously, there's been a sort of a lack of funding, and growth has plateaued a little bit over the last couple of years. That's put a bit of pressure on, the tech sector and tech companies. And it is, a massive sector, obviously the fastest growing sector in New Zealand. Amazing tech comes out of New Zealand and exported to the world. Under-resourced, a better pressure in the system. AI has come in at a good time. A lot of people are looking for optimization, looking for extra capacity, efficiency gains, but in the same token, absorbing that sort of learning whilst also, delivering in a resource constraint sector is hard.
Interesting, right? Because people are ingesting this AI to say, oh, yeah,
Look, it's going to help us out,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like, are you inviting in an assassin? because also it's kind of like, the things are being stood up natively, which are in competition to those things as well, right? So it's kind of like but then if you aren't incorporating that into your products and into your teams and into your systems, I guess it's so poignant for a people officer is like, well, I need these skills inside the organization. I can either build them, I can borrow them, I can buy them. But if I don't have a strategy to augment my talent, are we just going to get taken over?
Oh, you're absolutely right. And look, we've just come back from a few months ago from SaaStor AI, which is kind of like the SaaStor is the SaaS conference of to go to, and this year was
in the States.
In the States, it was purely on AI.
Is this where our plane is going today?
And when we got back, we were like, oh, "Holy crap! This, we are so behind." But some of the key things is, the key lessons is, yes, you can get consultants and you can put a program around all of that sort of stuff. But if you haven't got your leadership team sort of driving it and sweating it and making sure that people are doing this stuff, it's just not going to really fly.
It's fascinating too, right? Because so many. I work in the leadership search space, and so we are now getting a lot of requests for people to, can you find us people that have AI skills at the leadership level? Or do you know if there's a path for our leaders to be able to acquire these skills? And I think, I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day who runs his own AI consultancy, and he's credible, but we're in that phase where it does feel like there's a huge opportunity for a lot of snake oil salesman or a lot of, even at best, AI theatre that's going on.
Yeah, the confetti.
And so it's kind of like when you're looking at that leadership team, you're looking at those people, it's like, how do I ensure that it's not the blind leading the blind here? Do you have any ideas about that? Because I'd love to know. Yeah, and I no doubt people would.
I'm lucky that I've got really capable people in the business that, can call this bluff. I think lean in on, experts if you're not sure, but you have to be that kid at the candy store yourself. Like, you actually have to invest that time in learning and in, getting really curious about that stuff. I mean, one of the things that we came back realizing is that, yes, you can have people that are sort of a little bit late adopters, on that stuff within your workforce. You'd be lucky to have none of them. You will have some skeptics, And especially if you're in a high growth sort of agile environment, you probably have less of those. But most companies will have people that will wait a little bit and see what others are doing. You just cannot have that in leaders, though. Like your leaders have to be the kids at the candy store. They have to be the ones that are really curious and getting. They do. They have to be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can get so much done with this stuff. I can, do so much to enable people to, start to adopt this stuff
and lead the way, right? Like
and
inspire.
lead the way and make it less scary. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's been overdone, but it's such an interesting time when you can't see what's beyond the horizon.
Yeah.
What about your journey as a leader? Like what's something that no one really knows about why you got into this and like what the journey looked like?
It wasn't ever something that I aspired to be. I don't think I was very intentional about my career, and
Continue not to be.
I really am not. Yeah, I felt my way through it, but I think I like most kids, I went into uni not knowing what I want to do when I grow up. Still don't, and studied initially computer science, lol, and then. And maybe that's where I sort of picked up the first hint, the first crumb. I started to recruit people to do my assignments, software engineers, and then decided that wasn't quite the right thing for me. I went into do commerce degree, specializing in IT and management. Didn't want to sort of start out in support and help there, so I went into sales. Sales took me to recruitment. Recruitment took me to niche technology recruitment, and went at sort of sales roles for a good decade before realizing I'm not one that's sort of coin operated or, thrives chasing a target. But there was aspects of recruitment that I really enjoyed, talking to people about their sort of, potential and seeing this kind of hidden gems and exposing them to roles that they really thrive in, and equally talking to companies and, finding out what their strategies are and where they want to head and putting the right people in there. Those things, got me out of bed in the morning. And so, I had another kind of pause and went and studied psychology. Actually wanted to be a clinical psychologist for a hot minute before getting approached about this role at Figured. And it was a sort of a head of talent role, come help us recruit. We were a new company, realised, this is pretty amazing. I don't come from farming, but, it's a pretty big part of New Zealand.
Yeah.
It's making a real difference. It's, making farming operations more profitable and sustainable for generations, and that's a very important thing for all of us. And it's tech, and it's a hard problem, and it's, so I'm like, yes, I'll do recruitment. I looked up what HR management is and went for my interview, and I said, but I want the whole life cycle of an employee.
Yeah.
And I literally memorized it.
Yeah.
Saying, I want recruitment, retention, development, all these things. Didn't know what I was getting into, and it was just that it's been an amazing decade, right? Like it's it's exposed me so much. Yeah,
it's interesting.
So I definitely fell into it.
But there clearly was some kind of hunger.
Yes.
That you really wanted to make a difference.
Yeah.
And that how that manifested was in the leadership of people, kind of either directly or by proxy, right? Yeah. And the guidance. It's interesting because that whole psychological interest in people and understanding how they work. I sometimes, I work in recruitment obviously, and sometimes I think about myself as one of those happy psychologists.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I don't deal with the trauma. I don't deal with those other things.
Sometimes.
True. But the aspirational aspect of it and the positive psychology of it, and that has been an emerging discipline over the last 10 years.
And I think that was sort of a realization when I was looking at clinical psychology, and I was going, I don't know if I want to go home every day. And I don't think I can compartmentalize that very well. Being such an emotive person, and but when you've got the organisational sort of side of it, it's a little bit easier to compartmentalize. But there are days.
Totally, and that is part and parcel to any leadership role, or in any time that you are involved with the leadership of people.
Yes,
that's just
the human.
That's
endeavor.
how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Like people are emotional. That whole kind of psychological aspect of it, though, do you find that because no doubt you went and did a whole bunch of research and found out about all those things, and either, that tangent that you went on, you probably incorporated that stuff. Has it made you better?
Yes,
at that
absolutely.
stuff? And
Absolutely.
how does that play out?
Well, I mean, better in the sense that my mindset was better as well. Like I came into it with a very clear picture of who I am, and so you're coming in a little bit more prepared. And I do leadership development program at Figured, and we start the first sort of module of a few courses. It's around leading yourself. You got to understand yourself first to be able to become a leader, because these things show up, and mirror neurons and all. Like people actually pick up on a lot of things as well and mimic you. So you got to make sure that you really got a good understanding of yourself. So I think that helped me, but also there are so many aspects to like psychology that comes into coaching, that comes into dealing with people, that that sort of, even like in therapy there is this there's this sort of framework of graded exposure. You're scared of a spider. I'm not going to bring it right here, right now, but I will, just show you a spider that's little meters and meters away. And then slowly we sort of, get you to a point where you can be around spiders and you'll be fine. In development, you don't go from a developer to head of engineering. You go developer, and then you go proximal development after that as a senior. And then, you kind of just extend people beyond their means and limits, and that's kind of
stretch,
so there's
right?
there's
stretch
the
them, but don't
next
break
thing,
them.
So you've got some sort of scaffolding around them.
It's fascinating you talk about that. Like I've been through a personal story where one of my children has a problem with blood tests, and so the first thing you do is you give them a pin and just like get them exposed to that stuff, and then you give them a syringe with a pin.
Oh my goodness.
Then you get them to watch. Then you get them to watch a blood test, and then like it's that whole. And that's such a fascinating kind of analogy when it works with. It's like and that it talks so much to the opportunity to mentor, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're like, okay, I'm going to show you.
You got to build
and
a
then
muscle,
you're going
right?
to. And then you're going to exercise your ability, and then you can take a little bit more independence, more independence. Such a sustainable way. And people say, oh, yeah, sink or swim. It's like, well,
you don't.
The damage that can come from that is
exactly.
huge, especially in leadership, right?
Yeah.
Because the knock-on effects of failure in that space, as we know, well, I've still got a job, is that if you fail in that kind of role, the implications for the individuals that are sitting in that team are just huge.
I
right?
know. And it gives them trauma, and they'll never try again, some of them. It's sad. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's
you don't want
fascinating to think
people.
about that.
Yeah.
And like when you think about your kind of, obviously that part of being in the role of the head of people and being at that executive layer and doing that leadership coaching, feedback is going to be critical to how you help these people to grow.
Yes.
How do you go about doing this? Like when you're thinking about identifying the leader or even working with the leader once they're in the role, how do you use that feedback to be able to try and move them forward? And what from your past has been that feedback you're like, oh man, that's just been so important to me. I know that any time I'm dealing with a leader, this needs to be an aspect of the feedback that I give. So
how do I give them feedback, or what is the sort of core feedback? Yeah. I mean, look, I rely on my own sort of innate strength to to connect with people. I think I build really solid relationships with people that I can just have a blunt, conversation, and they know it comes from a good place, and that I'm in their corner. So I have struggled with that coming into a role like this, where you start out and you're a little bit more nice, and you might shy away from giving feedback, and you might not delay that, and I fell into all of those traps of delaying feedback. And if there's anything that I do harp on about in the leadership development program is, if you're going to pick up any skill, pick up that skill, giving feedback. And if you're going to be a leader, you're going to have to be okay with receiving feedback. And once you are actually a leader and a manager, you become a better employee, because you realize how hard it is to actually give feedback and to coach and do those things. You're a lot more forgiving for your manager when they're not as, as good at it, or can give it to you bluntly, or that sort of stuff. So I think like good leaders need to be okay with receiving all sort of feedback and need to thank people for it. It is, and they, that sort of ability to give feedback is a core skill. And do it often and do it as close to the thing and not shy away from it. And
when you think about like the feedback that leaders typically need, and so ultimately it's about where the gaps are. What do you see in the development of these leaders? No doubt you've met a whole bunch of leaders that are not in the organisation. You've developed leaders in the organisation. You've seen great leadership. Like, what is that piece of that gap that you constantly like? Man, if people had more of this. Yeah. And I didn't have to give so much feedback about this thing. What would it be? What would it be, that thing that you?
Yeah, that's a goodie. Look, I think people underestimate that sort of transparency and having that sort of clarity. And it's not certainty; it's clarity. It's more actually, this is where we're going. Yeah, this is where we're going. This is why we're doing it. Getting that sense of purpose, but also like just being radically transparent. It's something that I learned at Figured, and having come from more sort of corporate environments and more sort of agency environments, that's not sort of bred in all of the businesses like that. So seeing that, it's very inspirational, and it is people. If you're hiring good people, they want to have that context, they want to have that information, and they do much better with that information. So, I. Definitely, encourage, and we've got that value of working in the open, but it's more than just that. It's actually more like you can't expect people to do, to make good decisions and to really problem solve at their best abilities if they don't have the context. Yeah. If they don't know what you're sweating, if they don't, know where we're heading, they don't know why you've chosen certain things. So encode that in people, and I think, it's interesting. You're seeing that in AI now. The better the context, the better the prompt engineering, the better the tuning, the better the outcome.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
People's brains are the same. It's the same thing.
That's such an interesting observation, because I think that we downplay, especially in the technology sector, if you because it's so dominated with engineering, which is really about building the thing right. It's not necessarily about building the right thing or casting a vision that then kind of breaks down into a strategy with these pillars, and then they have all the initiatives and that kind of alignment and connection all the way up.
Absolutely.
But often this is one of the challenges, I guess, with the tech sector, is that because so much of the talent is born through engineering, and there are some unbelievably good engineering leaders who come from technology backgrounds who have cast that away, there is not necessarily that, well, if I'm going to do the right thing, then everyone should just figure it out. And that we're doing the right thing, so therefore that's what's going to work. Whereas, I had a beautiful little adage that I heard the other day is like, if you think you've communicated enough as a leader, you haven't.
No.
Like, you need to over-communicate.
You need to feel like you're just sick of hearing it yourself.
And actually, it's almost to the point of indoctrination, right? You gotta hammer that stuff home so it is imprinted in people's minds.
Once you're sick of hearing it, they probably heard it for the first time.
Which is ridiculous, but that's just kind of how we work, right?
Yeah.
And so, speaking of the kind of the leaders that you've worked with, or the people that you've observed, what are the kind of the principles or the philosophies that you've kind of seen working and have either applied to yourself or have been like, that's the thing?
It's a thing, yeah. I think that radical transparency is one, definitely. The other one that's, probably a little bit more me that I've brought in is, and it might sound a bit fluffy, but it's not, is that you can't really, I don't believe you can lead people that you don't have affections for, a sense of affection for. And I don't mean that as in like, we're a family and all that sort of stuff. I mean that as in like, you can challenge them, you can disagree with them, but you're connected, you know who they are. In your soul, you want them to do really well, and I think that's quite, like when you see, leaders, whether they're, warm and fluffy, or whether they are, a little bit more kind of, direct, and But the ones that click with that do really well because, people feel like they've got their back. And they're going to, they're giving them that feedback. They're not talking about them. They're giving them that feedback directly because they want them to do well. They're being very clear about the way they're heading. They're being very clear about what to do and what not to do, all that sort of stuff. And I think that it sort of comes from a place of affection. And
connection.
And connection is a kind of a byproduct of it. But yeah, that's sort of, leading people is actually having a bit of an affection towards them as well.
And sometimes it takes a while to develop that affection, doesn't it? But it's such an interesting observation because one of the principles of when I'm giving people coaching or when I'm helping them out with thinking about what the next step in their career looks like. I talk about this 4-piece framework. I think I've talked to you about, but with the peers, and that might be the person who's leading you, the person that's beside you, the person that's in your team, is understanding that you have enough agreement of values and the way you make decisions for there to be some common ground, and that might be where your affection lies, or just type of character, but then enough different that there is enough friction to create growth for both of you, right? Whether they're in your team, whether they're your peer, whether they're your leader yourself, because without that, there's no growth.
Yeah.
Without the friction, there's no growth. But without the alignment, there's no willingness.
Yeah.
Right? There's no trust.
Yeah.
There's no connection and affection, and it's such a, it's such a
that
nuanced
sort of,
thing,
is,
right?
It is, yeah.
But it's almost like you've got to have the self-awareness to know.
Yeah.
What is the good rub for you and what's not.
Yeah.
Which is great. Or you've got to kind of go through this journey of discovery with that individual. And it's like, actually, this doesn't work out. Yeah. Funnily enough, just like every other relationship, right? Like, it might be a romantic relationship, professional relationship, community relationship, and that is a factor within the way that you lead people or lead yourself.
Yes, I think that sort of connection and that transparency is one that I've seen work really well. I think also like good leaders don't stay in their lane. It's not, this is my function, this is my, this is my little team. They're actually really curious about the rest of the business and they want the business to be doing well. And they tend to be sort of everywhere. From my experience for the size of our company, that works really well.
Yeah. What do you see being the key places that you learn from? Like, obviously you learn from your interactions with your team, but are there places that you kind of go to be able to consume stuff around things like leadership? And do you because there's the old adage of like, leaders are readers, but leaders are actually learners.
Yeah, so and they have to be.
So what do you do? What do you do for yourself, and what do you kind of give people direction around?
I mean, look, 70% of how we learn is through doing. So all of your senses are engaged and you've got a very close feedback loop when you're learning and you make a mistake, you really feel it and you remember that and you won't do it again, as opposed to when you read it or when you're watching others do it.
Cut and paste your
GPT
code.
It's not. Yeah, it's not quite. So expose yourself, be very uncomfortable. I've got this kind of philosophy of being intentionally awkward. I'm okay with that. It never feels good, but I know that I'm growing if I'm intentionally awkward. And so, expose yourself to these opportunities, go in a little bit, outside of your discomfort, outside of your comfort, and focus on learning through doing as much as you can. Find yourself really good mentors as well. And it can be your manager, it can be a non-manager, somebody that you really aspire to be. Find your network within the industry. The tech industry is flooded with a great, bunch of people. Who
want to help.
I learned a lot of what I learned through leaders in the business, but also obviously through falling in this deep end that I got myself into. But I've never had an HR manager or a head of people and culture, so I've had to learn this stuff through the network. And, in New Zealand, we've got an amazing bunch of PNC leaders and, I'm on all the Slacks, I'm on all the things that, and have jumped on coffees and all sort of stuff to make sure that we're, learning from each other. Yeah.
That's cool. And I think that what I've found anyway, and I get asked about mentorship and coaching, and I think people are like, how do I find that person?
Yeah.
Well, go to the things that they're going to be curious about,
Yes.
absolutely. But how would you advise people to not necessarily identify who the mentor is, but what's going to be good for them. You talked about affection and alignment before. That that you got to say to that, you got to be able to say to that person, we like each other enough to be able to do some stuff together. But what else do you think? Is it kind of...
As in what would be a good match?
Yeah, and how would you go about uncovering that?
I mean, when I was looking for sort of people that can help me on the sort of PNC journey, I was really looking for people that have, are beyond where I am. They've done what I've done, but they've done it in bigger organizations. They've done it in multiple organizations that they can, come to me. And the best thing would be that you'd give them a situation and they'd go, okay, well, and how are you looking at solving it? And I'd kind of take them through my thinking and go, well, that might work when we were at Xero, we did this. When we were at, this company, we did that. And they give me this kind of nuance to, apply this certain problem across.
How did you even start that conversation with them? Like, did you sort of just go, hey, I wouldn't catch up for coffee, and then you went like, I want to learn about these things?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much. You headhunt your mentor. You find them and you go, I'm really, I love your skills. I love what you're doing, and I'd love to, buy you a coffee and pick your brain on.
How do you think that kind of setup is like? Well, how do you figure out that there's enough incentive for them to help you? Like, do you sort of go, hey, this is what I want to achieve. You have this commitment from me.
Yeah.
Like, I'll then follow up. And everything you ask me to do, I'm going to follow up with and prove that I can do. Like, is that kind of like that?
Yeah, and look, hopefully, these people are working for companies that are also generous in development and, can remunerate these people. Like, you might want to work out some sort of, financial incentive for this person to catch up with you once a month for a couple of hours, because they are, they're
busy. Well, if they're good, they're going to be busy.
Yeah,
right?
They're going to be busy. They're going to have, day jobs and all those kind of things as well. So it's okay to pay people for that sort of stuff, but find the right person for you. Yeah. And it's just as much about chemistry as it is about experience. And go beyond the experiences that you're in, like way beyond, in similar companies or companies that you want to be part of. Yeah.
And deliver on the commitments that you make, right?
Yes,
like, talk's
absolutely.
cheap.
Yeah.
So actually do the work.
Yeah,
you ask to do something, do it. Because I think a lot of mentors and coaches from feedback that I've had, they have these conversations and people just drink that information and don't really do anything about it. Or they'll catch up again and say, what changed? Yeah. And the person will be like, well, I haven't really had time. I haven't done the work. It's like they need to know that their advice or their help is going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Rather, because like I said, talk is cheap. What do you think are the things that you've seen a whole bunch of people develop as leaders? What do you think is the kind of the piece of the framework or the philosophy or anything like that that's off the shelf or that you've developed that you think that they need to think about before embarking on a journey within leadership?
It's a really simple one, but I think it was kind of a mental shift for me, the radical candor one. Which, I mean, the philosophy of radical candor is really more about feedback, but it's also about kind of like how do you get the best out of people. And you do it by caring personally and challenging directly. And anything outside of that is actually not great. And I think a lot of really lovely people tend to like fall into that care personally but not challenge directly. And it's called ruinous empathy, I think.
Ruinous.
Yeah, you're ruinously empathetic.
Ruinously empathetic.
Probably not.
Nice.
Not pronouncing it right, but so you're basically setting them up to fail, essentially, and it's a very selfish thing to do. It's seeing the flies undone and not saying anything about it, sort of thing.
That's
situation.
a great example. Yeah, or seeing something in someone's teeth and just letting it slide.
Or like that the other sort of side of it is you're just challenging and you're not caring personally, and that's when you're kind of telling everybody that the flies undone. Or that the other one is neither, and you're just playing politics. So that sort of idea of getting that balance in the moment of I'm going to give you this feedback and making it a personal moment where you're still making sure you're there for the person, but you're being very clear around that sort of feedback. And it could be feedback, it could be direction, it could be nudges, and the mental shift for me was that I saw myself in that, ruinously empathetic and going, I'm being nice, but I'm not being kind to the person. And that's because I'm an empath that clicked with me and I'm going, oh, now I'm being horrible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well,
Then it drove me to do the right thing, and give more feedback and, be the person that kind of drags them in the room and go, hey, just so you know, that was,
It's brave though, right?
It's
because
it
you're
takes
inviting
courage.
conflict.
Yeah, which isn't comfortable for anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And so when you kind of think about how that plays out, because that's a good philosophy, and then this person's going to this role, but every single leader is asked to deliver something, right, and orchestrate. So how does that translate, because you talked about delivery being front of mind for you right now. How does that translate? How do you see that play out? Can you give me an example about how that might play out within the organisation you work with or other organisations that you know about?
Yeah, that's a good one, because I think it kind of talks to your initial question around what sort of leaders, work really well, is their ability to kind of there's a strategy and there's, a clear direction and a purpose, and you can connect people to that. But on a day-to-day basis, that strategy is just at the back of your mind. You're not sitting in a strategy desk all day long, that you do that once a quarter or something like that, but then you just hold it in your mind, right? The best leaders can zoom in and out. They're actually, they can, see that sort of, path forward, and they can form that vision and the strategy, and they can talk to it to people, but they're not preaching every day about the strategy or the vision. They're actually in the work with them. They're zooming in. They're in the trenches. They're cementing those things in the micro behaviors. So, they're going in the code and going, that's not our standard. They're going in the, in the intercom and talking to customers and nudging people in the right way. And, so they do have the ability. And we've got a few of those leaders, and they are exceptional when you can do that sort of, bimodal zoom in and out
I think it's such a challenge, though, right? Because being able to
and
stay high level and then
that way,
and stack it all the way down. And, people talk about the T-shaped skills and stuff, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
But that I think it's also holding that vision and being able to translate it down into the minutiae. Because then everything kind of clicks together. Because every single person wants to know why they're doing what they're doing. Well, anyone that's engaged wants to know why they're doing what they're doing. And so if you're able to translate that into the strategy or the direction, clarity around the vision, translate that into the connection with the really small stuff as well as all the big stuff, then people feel like they belong, right? And they feel like they're doing a good job.
A sense of purpose and meaning to their, job.
Yeah. That's interesting. And so, how does that, because do you have any mechanisms? What are the rituals of work that you see that work well for leaders in delivery?
You've got to be very clear that that's what you want out of leaders, firstly. That's got to come from doing that as a CEO, doing that as a CFO, doing that as a CPO and all that. You've got to do that as well. We don't have managers. We've got leaders that are doers as well. I still recruit. I still do development chats and all those kind of things. So you have to be in the trenches to kind of mirror that behavior in other managers. Or have them mirror it, but also just be clear that you're not here to coordinate or to just manage and have meetings. It's
you own the outcomes,
and the mechanisms of how we get there is can be quite varied. It's actually just get there sort of thing, and that might require you to, and that's energy comes in different forms in teams, and you've got to, put energy in, not take energy out. And I've got this kind of philosophy of good leaders are exothermic. They put energy in. They don't suck the energy from their team. And there's several different things that you can do to put energy in. You can do it through connecting them with the meaning of their work, with the purpose and clarity and that sort of stuff. You can do it through just unblocking them on a day-to-day basis. People want to do a good job, but they might be too embarrassed because they can't do this thing, or procrastinating because it's too hard, or if you're connected and you know where they're at, and you can unblock them or ask them a few questions, go, have you tried this or have you tried that? I'll do it this way. They feel so good at the end of the day. They feel accomplished. Could be the high fives. It could be the challenging chats, just giving them a sense of relief of, okay, I have been struggling with this, but now I understand how to do it, or I understand that it's also a concern of yours, and we've, made a commitment to work on it. All of that sort of stuff is actually energy in. And I think sometimes when I say these like exothermic and energy, people sort of imagine these hype people and
holistic.
They're really it's all that sort of people experience confetti stuff. It's not. It's actually being there and providing a frictionless experience for
and being
people.
present and invested.
Yeah.
One of the things that we see in our business and other businesses, we see leaders who are, in the frame of that exothermic thing, putting energy in, putting energy in, and putting energy in. And it is just, it's part of leadership. There is an element of selflessness. There is an element of you are the person that is going to invest. How do you keep them topped up? How do you keep them topped up?
Their leader needs to top them up as well. I mean, that... and then the leadership team need to anchor on each other, to do that. And you've got to recognize who your first team is, and that's your peer group. It's not your functional team, because you've got to make sure that you're okay to be able to be there for for others. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's what mechanisms have you put in place historically for the teams, or put in place for yourself?
Yeah.
To ensure that you are the battery's full. You're coming in, you can give what you need to give.
I have not mastered that.
I don't think you're not masters it, right? Because the fact that you even have to have it in place means that, you're not going to be conscious
and look,
of it.
everybody is different, and I'm not one that has ever been sort of a work-life balance in the most sort of, structured way. I'm more of a merger, I guess, where, I might come in a little bit later. I've got kids, and, I'll leave a little bit earlier, but I'll be online till midnight, because I...
Don't espouse midnight.
Because it's just, I get a lot of, the whole house is quiet, and I catch up, and I do a lot of the sort of more inspiring reading, and, a lot of my creative thinking comes out, around then, and I enjoy it. So I'm forced into it. I enjoy it. So my batteries are full when I'm doing these things. But you've just got to recognize what fuels you, and get that support from your team as well. I think, and your leader, to really know how you tick and what you need, and be very vocal about that stuff, because it is important. Yeah.
I think that it's interesting to see the way that you think about that, because I imagine that you encourage people to kind of observe yourself, figure out what's going to top you up, what's not going to top you up, and some of that's going to be experimentation.
Yeah.
Some of it's going to be learning. I know for me and for many others, I got to treat the symptoms as well as the causes of stress. I've got to treat the symptoms as in do the exercise, eat right, da-da-da. But then on the other side of things, I've got to treat the cause and go, is this what I'm doing right now an expression of who I am professionally?
Yeah.
And do I align with this?
Yeah.
Because if I don't do that, I'm going to end up doing a job that's for someone else.
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm going to do activities which are not leveraging my capabilities or skills most effectively. But sometimes it takes for someone else to make that observation.
Yeah.
Even in a leadership role, and go, hey, maybe that's not your path. It's okay.
Yeah.
But to be able to, like you say, fully engaged, fully present, fully investing in that team, it does kind of need to be an expression of what you're really like, right? And what you really care about. Whether that's part of your legacy and what you want to do, or it's the action statement of your purpose. But the other thing I think as well is that you talk about that your first team. There needs to be an acknowledgement from your peers that they can go, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
What's or I've noticed that when this happens, you this happens to you. Is that? Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to do something about that?
Absolutely.
Is that, and have you experienced that? Has that allowed you to go, oh, you're right. I need to top myself up here. I need to have a break. Go to Bali.
Yeah.
What is that thing that you think that would be really powerful for someone in a leadership role, being able to go, hey, when this happens, can you guys just let me know?
Yeah. And I think it's spending time together, right? It's the day-to-day interactions, understanding each other, connecting with each other, knowing. our tell signs. When we are stressed, I get more reactive. I get more manic, when I'm stressed. Where some people might just hide out for a bit, and
Go to ground.
Yeah.
I'm definitely
so
going
just noticing these things are quite important, but also making it really healthy to talk about it. If your CEO is talking about it, like not to the point where going but if you've got that sort of ability to be vulnerable and be yourself at work, then I'd work on that first, making it just okay to talk about it and normal and natural, because it's a human endeavor and we're humans. We're not like another person when we come to work. We still have the same
so
thing.
Glad you said that, because like it's kind of like, that's work, Jules.
That's me.
It's like, well, no, like
I wish I could switch.
There may well be a bit of a division in how you express yourself, but you're still the same person,
I know.
right? And like there's going to be the bleed. Like I think I'm a better parent because I'm better at work, right? So actually, to be fair, when there's stress on at work, you do need to police yourself at home. It's like, whew, okay. I remember I used to sit in the car when I got home from work until I was ready to go in and be a husband and a dad.
Yeah.
And it was sometimes I'd be there for a while, right? Like, it's like, whoa, man, okay, I'm ready, because I knew that. That other part of your life, I'm still me, but I also I got to manage the bleed, right? Like, got to manage that bleed, and I think that there's so much in that, because often people talk about journaling. It's like some people it doesn't work well.
No.
People talk about having a confidant that does work well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then having that, like you said, access at work to be able to say, "Can I grab you for 30 seconds? I need to get this off my mind."
Yeah.
Is going to allow you to, you can still be yourself, but then also you don't necessarily need to take that stuff home or whatever.
And no one's an island. Like you can share that problem and make it other people's problem, especially if you're in leadership. Like it's a very lonely position. You've got to be able to kind of share that stuff with people that that care for you and that are have that experience as well. So when we're doing our leadership development, a big part of it is actually putting it that cohort. So that you've got emerging leaders as well as really seasoned leaders all in one setting. And it's less about the material that I bring. The material is like nothing, glamorous or anything like that, but it's actually more the conversations that happen around the room. Having a CEO who's done, many leadership positions to a new team lead with a very fresh, perspective on leadership is just powerful.
It's so funny. Hey? Like it's the why is actually in the how or who you're doing it with, rather than just necessarily
really
what you're going to what the output is.
Again, you're learning through seeing other people that are really also in it do it. So you connect with it more.
I'm curious about kind of, we talk a little bit about AI. What are you most kind of fearful of in that people space, in the leadership space, about what's coming?
Less fearful, I think. Just you've got this sort of like hype and anxiety, because there's been a lot of major technological sort of, advancements over the years, obviously. This is the biggest shift that really intersects with the workforce. Like it intersects with actually how we, interact with the world. Like it's all changing. Mm-hmm. But specifically around our roles, it's like there's just no way they're going to be the same, right? Mm-hmm. And I've got some hypothesis, I think, in my sort of mind. And, if you're thinking about even the baseline, all of the, reactive work and all of the mundane work being sort of taken care of eventually and systemized by AI, you're by default going to be moving up the ladder, and moving up the value chain at least, in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So your capability is going to be sort of having to shift anyway. But what you're starting to see, and you see it probably a little bit more in a technology business, is that sort of bleed of roles. You see developers having to start to think like product managers, because they really do have to understand the broader problems a lot more. They have to be able to provide the context to, AI.
Just the dropping of these barriers between things, right?
Yeah. But you also see product managers having to go, okay, now for me to imagine the solution, I've got to understand what these models can do. So they were having to become a bit more technical. So you see these kind of like bleeds into your sort of adjacent roles. I see a world where internal mobility is going to be on steroids, that people with specific sort of skills, and it's less about their roles as their skills,
characteristics.
can be in characteristics and the context they can bring. Like for us, if you come from an agri accounting or come from that very specific domain, you're going to be awesome in a lot of roles. Because the functional parts of product management almost don't apply. Yeah. The functional parts of design almost don't apply. The functional parts of the mechanics of how you do it, and the frameworks, almost like you're throwing out the rule books around that, but being able to articulate that problem at a deep level and call bullshit when the AI comes back with something a bit more mediocre is actually the thing. So you can deploy these people across different functions.
It's fascinating.
That's fascinating. I also see, and please quote me if this happens. Find me and quote me. I also see that career ladders are not going to be upwards. It's going to be lateral. Yeah. I see that sort of people will move across, and that will be the you've made it moment, as opposed to going up.
So do you see it as being non-hierarchical, or just
Definitely
very,
non-hierarchical,
very,
but also
very flat pyramids?
Well, yeah, I think it's more the currency is no longer you're a leader and an executive, and the currency is going to be like you can do more across functions. Across functions, across the business, because it's not going to be, companies aren't going to be dense in people, they're going to be dense in capability,
It's fascinating. And I was just thinking that if you've got if you're a bot herder, if you've got an army of agents or whatever you are, like everyone's a leader at that point, right? Because you've got...
Yeah, exactly. We all have agents.
I guess when you come back to it, it's like, there's going to be someone who's in charge of something.
Yeah.
And they can't, if they get called out on where that's at or what's happening or what the deliverables are, they're not going to be able to say, well, the bot didn't do it. Right? So you're accountable for your team of robots or bots or whatever they are. And so actually that level of accountability is going to completely change. You can no longer be a cog in the system. Like, you are going to be responsible. And it's interesting because I think we talk about how job loss and blah blah blah, and not to do that disservice, but it's really interesting to look at the fun hype of the expansion of. Geez, I could do so many things, right? Which is the counter to that.
I'd love people to get excited about that, because who wouldn't want to make more impact? Who wouldn't want to solve bigger problems and not to be bogged down by all the repetitive tasks and admin and all that sort of stuff. Like it's exciting, but it is a shift in the workforce, and I think you have to take a very people first approach to that sort of shift, because it is scary and there's change management, and you've got to make sure that people are encouraged and are enabled to make that shift as well.
I see the elevation of, and people risk has always been a big thing in organisations. It is often the thing that derails organisations. Getting the wrong talent, skills not fitting the strategy, all those sort of things, or disengagement, poor leadership, which disengages teams, which drops productivity. I'm looking at the kind of more of the macro forces here, but with an increase in outcomes and an increase, 50x someone's outcomes, they are leading this thing, they're accountable for that thing. To me, that just reeks of increasing people risk, right? Like huge increases, because no longer are people on glide time or low cerebral load tasks, or, they're living in the grey a lot more. And one of the things that increases stress is usually a function of a lack of perception of control. And so as you do all these things, yes, there's much more controllable outcomes, but there's many, many more of them, and they've all sort of linked together, and they've got to link together with other departments or other individuals who are highly augmented. And so you're living in the grey. The things that you're tasked with are much more creative decision making. They're much less kind of clear paths forward. So the stress goes up. Yeah. So I'm really curious about what that kind of looks like as far as the support for teams go as they're further augmented. Do you have any ideas about what that could or should look like?
And I don't know if we've nailed it, but I think our approach has been really, really good. Again, going back to that graded exposure, right? starting from a place where it's outside of their comfort zone, but it's not going to sort of burn people out. And, we've come back from, Sastra with a very clear strategy around how we're going to take AI. And, we kind of had it in three pillars. One, how we're going to make sure that we're really delivering our product for our customers with an AI assistant sort of, workflows and capability and insights and all those kind of things. And we've got a whole program on that, and that was, that's been in the works for a year or so. And then the sort of second pillar is in the company, there's so much opportunity because, as I said, we're the type of growth company who usually has more opportunity than resource. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to optimize that. So looking at our tooling and, what can we bring, what can we bin, what can we enable that's really going to, have us at a functional level, have a lot more AI in it. And so going through all of your systems, your operations, how you support your customers on intercom, how you enabling all these sort of agentic workflows within those, and almost carving out the parts in each of those functions that are going to be just, on rails and enabling people to use those, systems really well. But then at a sort of a more workforce ready perspective, you've got this individualistic sort of capability thing that's going on as well. So that's when you start to make it a lot more fun. I think, being playful about it, bringing a theme to it. So we use Google Suite for everything. So we started with creating gems. We had a gemathon. We all came in blinged up and all that sort of stuff. And we we put people in cross-functional sort of groups and really had developers who are a bit more advanced on that stuff with context engineering, obviously. With other functions. So we had, customer success and a couple of developers. We had, product with a few developers. We had, so we mixed the technical with non-technical for a couple of purposes. One was they need to adopt that way of thinking, that structured, really structuring a problem, giving context, the tone, all of that stuff, the playbooks of, putting together a prompt. That's a very engineering way of looking at a problem, splitting it up into smaller chunks and reverse engineering your way out, into it. And secondly, for developers to start to adopt that sort of more business context as well, because that's going to be their key thing. Their key work-ons is get out of the development cave and pick your head out at the business and understand what's going on in the business, because that's going to be your currency. So, that. And it was astonishing, just making it really fun, making it the environment to, foster innovation is really important.
Experiment.
And we underestimate that sort of, don't make it rigid, actually have, people have a go.
Yeah.
Don't worry about, spend for that little moment as well, because, the spend is going to go down. Tokens are getting cheaper and cheaper and all that kind of stuff. So, it will cost you more not doing it, basically. So we did that, and then we kind of cranked it up a bit more. Now we have to get serious, guys. What are we choosing to do? And how do we make sure that they're done well and not just the 70% that AI gives you, but actually doing that grind in the next 30% that takes a long time, and it's people just want to quit in that moment. So as functional leaders, what are you saying you're going to have fully AI assisted, and how are you going to support it, and how are you going to make sure that that's constantly tuned? So we did the next sort of level, and we're just every month making sure that that's in the diary. People are taking that time. We're coming in. We're
they've got to be ready for change, though, eh?
And actually, really amazing things come out of those days.
But they can see their own benefit in that change, right? So they can see, I'm getting better at that. Oh, that's going to be wasted.
Yeah.
But, oh, God, thank God for this.
Well, you hero it. You hero it.
It's fascinating. And do you see, have you seen the kind of as you've augmented and as these people, you got more kind of investment in that artificial intelligence or automation, are you seeing those stress levels actually go up? Are you seeing any, are you measuring that productivity at the moment, or is that kind of the next phase of...
Yeah, I mean, productivity has definitely gone up, and that sort of that shift. It's really it's interesting because it's the capability is now the stressful thing. People are being pushed up a level, and they're having to understand things, at a deeper level, at a wider level. So they're spending their time trying to understand more context, trying to understand the problem a little bit more, so that they can get those outcomes. But also, the technical sort of side of it. I think like AI literacy needs to be in every company's competency sort of framework. You have to invest in there. So, that sort of ability to use the tools and that sort of stuff has become, a big thing. Like, you've got new roles popping up, like a go-to-market engineer and those, those kind of things. And they are technical, positions. So I think the capability is now more stressful than the capacity. It used to be the capacity sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good insight. So, thank you very much.
Lovely to meet you.
This is your captain speaking.